Welcome to the show, homies. This is a very special Independence Day road trip episode. Road trip. I hear it all the time from homies that they binge the podcast when they're on the road trips. So today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you your killer road trip playlist. I'm going to dig into all 6 years of the podcast, check everything out in the catalog in the library, and give you the cheat code so you can skim through and find topics that are exactly the thing that you're looking for. All right, gang. Give me liberty from renting or give me death.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
What's crackin', How to Buy a Homies? Get it crackin' like firecrackers? I'm your host, David Sidoni. I'm sworn to my personal mission of helping you find the answers to get out of the rent trap, even though in the middle of 2025, as we get ready for the 4th of July weekend, you know what? It kind of looks impossible. I mean, how the hell does a regular first-time homebuyer navigate the process of buying a home in this completely irregular bonkers and bananas market? My best advice to you sounds like a typical old man, but it's all about the fundamentals. You can't control the market. You can't control the wars that are happening, which means you can't control the price of oil and gas or eggs. And you can't control the economy, but you can control your knowledge on this process. And you know this is going to better your future, regardless of whatever the future looks like. Owning a home, that's going to be your path to stability. And the main goal here for 6 years is dropping knowledge bombs to help you get that clarity. Truly, that's my one mission. Clarity on the process, clarity on the best strategies and pathways to help make this happen for you. So it's the cheat sheet for all 360 episodes for your roadie weekend. While you're traveling, the goal is you can cherry pick some episodes to listen to between fireworks, hot dogs, and apple pie, and possibly gas stations, rest stops, or airport terminals. If you're brand new to the podcast, well, then this is going to be easy for you. You just go to episode 301 and listen to the 10 episodes on the must-know Homebuying 101 for any first-time homebuyer. After that, if you're brand new, here's a tip. The best way to get your How to Buy a Home PhD is to listen to the most current episode as it comes out, so you stay on top of all the current trends that are happening in the home market, things you can take advantage of, and then you jump around a little bit. I recommend you stay within the last 12 months of the titles. It's good to jump back to older episodes. And of course, you can also check the titles to see if that's information that you want to get more information about. Or you can even go deep past a year, way into the catalog, if there's something specific that you don't find there. So the trick is start with 10 and then listen to new ones, old ones, new ones, old ones. That'll help you really get a handle on the process. Now, here's the cheat sheet just for the last year's episodes. 350, that's the playbook for how to buy a home. It's something we call the last lease ever. It's a must listen because it gives you the simple action steps. Doesn't matter if you're day one of your education or if you're ready to start writing offers. This playbook with the real action steps, it comes to you about the big three. And those are the things that you need to work first before you start worrying about anything else. Your credit score, your debt, and your savings. That's the big three. A good follow-up to that is episode 164. That one answers the where am I right now in the process? It's great to help you get your bearings. Something else you might find helpful is that if some of the terms that I use you don't understand, you feel like you have to use Google Translate to explain every other word, all the real estate jargon. I get it. Sounds like a foreign language. I got you. Starting at episode 94, I have 21 full episodes that break down A to Z, all the first-time homebuyer terms and definitions. Now, here's some of the highlights for the last year that might help you out. How much home can I afford? That's 300. And then, am I ready? That's 322. And then the whole rent versus buy thing, that's 355. That one just dropped the other day. And then if you're looking for the most recent market update, that's episode 344. That's the 2025 market update. We'll be dropping a new one in July to give you updates since May. I know a lot of you have loan questions, so 339 and 340 are fantastic. That's our one and only unicorn lender talking about instead of getting a phone call to figure out how to get pre-qualified, how to get a discovery call. We're going to talk about making a plan, talking about down payment assistance and the lending myths. And then episode 345 is how to buy a home with high interest rates, the 2025 version. 346 is mortgage planning, why you should act early and why, who, and what to do and how to do it. Great steps there. And 349, we'll talk a little bit about student loans with our credit expert because that changed lending for a lot of you just in the past couple months. You can also jump back to episode 280 that talks about financial planning. And if you want the deep dive, that starts at episode 19. There's a 7-part series on how to financially prepare to buy your first home. Questions about inspections? That's episode 322. Episode 328 is a great one, action steps. These are rarely discussed, but highly effective tips and tools from first-time homebuyers, or for first-time homebuyers, I should say, in all the stages of your process. Episode 319 talks about a condo or a townhome versus a single-family house. Episode 279 talks about new builds versus resale. And then episode 329 is a cool one. It's details matter. It's how to calculate the value of a new mortgage that's going to be higher, sometimes a lot higher than your rent. Episode 348, we go over closing costs. And then in the past 12 months or so, JT dropped a few episodes that are really kind of cool. It's a producer, 30-year-old perspective, 274. Why my producer JT can't buy a home, even though he works with me every single day. Episode 299, he talks about, it's the podcast you didn't ask for, where he goes through the metamorphosis of what it's like to be listening to me hammer this stuff home every day when he really isn't in a position to make a move right now. It's pretty cool. And then 342 is the things that he wished he'd done sooner. Some really transparent, great insights from him. If you want tips for moving, if you're getting close to moving into a new home or maybe into a new apartment to get your last lease ever set up, 336 and 337, we had a great national expert on moving. And of course, the most recent episodes in the library right now are the top 20 questions from first-time home buyers. Lots of stuff there. And if you want to, there are 40 plus other listener questions that I answered on the podcast. That's episode 241, 42, 43, and 244. And there's a ton in the back catalog as well, going deep. I'm going to ask JT to put all of these in the notes for the podcast, but there's detailed episodes about being ready to buy, financial planning, dozens of episodes on loans. There's more stuff on inspections. There's information on using your 401k as a non-taxable, non-penalized event when you're using it for the purchase of your primary home. Pretty cool. The bidding war tips are 175 to 177. There's also 9 episodes or 10 episodes on your credit score. There's episodes on the credit pull myth, episodes on down payment assistance, house hacking, using the internet, out-of-state buying, PMI, and a couple episodes on Dave Ramsey and that saving technique. Episodes on renting before you buy your first home. There's episodes on student loan debt, on tax tips and how to buy as a 1099er, and there's even episodes that break down the whole unicorn thing for those of you who have questions. But your big tip for this road trip is the how to buy a home interviews. Real life discussions with real life people who got the keys. They're so amazing. I mean, they're just like completely transparent and tell you everything. Some of the classic episodes, 109 was Brian and Diana. 119 is Brianna. Incredible episode. 161 was my gal Sally. She's fantastic. 186 is John and Richard, my WebMD doctor. If you haven't listened to that one, it's really good. Episode 238 is a homie who bought with us in 2020, bought a little condo, and then in 2024, hear how she bought a 2,400 square foot home. Something that you can aspire to. Episode 239 is Isaiah. Used a VA loan, 0 down, and only pays $100 more in his mortgage than his rent. And Isaiah had this incredible $6,000 trick to save money. It's a hack. And then episode 249 with my boy Deshaun Deshaun is the real deal, and he has 3 different segments in the podcast where he talks about 3 parts of buying an episode, of buying a home. And then, of course, if you want to hear me cry at the end of an episode, Christina and Sean really got me emotional. That's episode 167. They also had some great stories about how to save for a house, but, I did cry, and that's sort of the thing that a lot of people enjoy to listen to. We can also go back to a whole bunch of episodes, interviews about people who had low down payments or low closing costs or didn't think they could buy a home at all, but somehow figured it out. In episode 194, Jacob bought a $265,000 house for only $2,200 all in, down payment and closing costs. Episode 217 is Millie and Ben. This is a great episode, how to buy your home before turning 30, buying a $435,000 house with only $17,000 down. And then there's episode 228 with Andrew and Melissa. Their story and getting in was really great to hear what they could pull off. And episode 232, Gage and Moselle, what they did was amazing. They said that they were self-proclaimed not privileged people, but they still figured out a way to make it happen. It's kind of the same vibe in episode 312, Declan and Bailey, who were like, we thought buying a home was for rich people, and they got in with just a 3% down payment. Now, on the other side of things, we've got the high cost of living people. There's a bunch of episodes for those of you who might be looking at homes above and possibly well above the average $400,000, $430,000 home. One example of that is episode 116 with Jacob, episode 118 with Andrew and Lene, episode 128 with Ashley and Alex in Boston, who went from a shoebox of an apartment to, I think it was a nice little condo is what they got. And then episode 135, how about San Francisco? Nathan and Brian, they actually afforded a home in the most unaffordable place in the country. One of them had to convince the other one that using the 401k was a good idea. So that's a great episode. And then Washington, D.C., that's episode 253, Caitlin and Mason. And what about Long Island, New York? How can you afford there? Check episode 321 with Sam and Kristen. Now, what if you're moving to a new state? Listen to these real-life stories. Episode 55, Adrian and John. Episode 120, Tatiana and Donovan. Episode 235, Shopping in Seattle, Buying in Tennessee. That was James and Cynthia. Episode 257, James, he bought a home in 7 weeks with a brand new job in a new town. And then episode 333, Conan also buying in a new area. What about for people under 25 years old? Well, that starts with episode 55 with Madison, episode 71 with Randy, episode 85 with Cortland, who I think was 19. And then episode 234 is Yadi and Victor, 25 years old. They dreamed of buying a home. Didn't think they could. Spoiler alert, they did. And then there are some people, let's just say over the average age of the first-time homebuyer, 38. Pedro was 59. Got a 0 down home, and it wasn't a VA or USDA. It was actually a down payment assistance program that his unicorn found for him. And episode 113, another one for one of our not 35-year-old listeners who bought a home. That was Stephanie. She wouldn't tell me how old she was, but she's not 25. That much she told me. And speaking of the single ladies, Stephanie was one of them, but every single one of these episodes was a single lady who purchased a home. And they're some of the most captivating, interesting, intriguing, and educational episodes and interviews that I've ever done. They are just jam-packed with knowledge. Number 55 was Madison. Classic. Then you got episode 104 with Tuesday. That's her name, not the day the podcast was on. Great tips there. 113 with Stephanie was incredible. 163 with Amber. She was so smart. And then 169 with my girl Joelle, who's got just great stories about buying a home as a single person and getting advice from her mom. And then episode 252 is Emily, our therapist, who learned a lot about not just the details of buying a home, but believe it or not, the emotions. I guess she was seeing things from the therapist's point of view. And then episode 258 is Nika, who was 26 and bought a home herself in New Jersey. That story is so inspirational. And oh goodness, East Coast, 265, Viola. A single mom who bought her first home in Queens, New York, with all women as part of her real estate team. And she did it so as a single mom, her daughter, who I think was 12, could have just a great example of the positive attitude of sticking with it and making the dreams happen. Episode 285 is Katie, a single female in Austin, Texas. Episode 324, bought with our team right here in Southern California, a pharmacist, and in a high, expensive, not cheap place to live. And we made it happen. And then episode 347 is Ashley. She is so smart. She bought a home on her own. She used a couple different realtors, or maybe, I can't remember. Anyway, she fired realtors. And then when she got the right realtor in the right house, she bought a home in 3 days. And then episode 351 is Claudia, a drama teacher who had to figure out how to get the right income to be able to make her dream come true. And she, spoiler again, she bought a home. Now, if you're one of those like major researchers, someone who goes in depth on everything, someone who over prepares. I have some interviews with some great people with engineer mindsets, perhaps a bit OCD and a bit anal, but I love them. And if you love details and spreadsheets, these guys are for you. Episode 107 is Philip. Episode 121 is Jake, who learned when to pull out of the deal because, shocker, he's a structural engineer. Episode 181 is Corey, and man, dry humor killed me. 187 is Kendall, who is a self-proclaimed over-researcher. And Kendall is such an exciting interview, and she found what she called immediate peace once all the researching was done. And then episode 236 is my boy Hawken in Utah, who learned all about using a buy down to beat high rates, so it matched his spreadsheet. Episode 318 was Antonio, who learned about speeding up the entire process by using the research. And Antonio is, again, self-acknowledged risk-averse and still pulled the trigger. And then finally, episode 327 is Elizabeth, who's just a very intelligent person. And why I love this interview for the researchers are, this was someone who was using 20% down and had some good savings and had some good savings plans, and really dug deep into the big math, the long-term understanding of how to use your home as a diversification of your savings portfolio. That's 327 with Elizabeth. If you want to hear real-life stories about breaking your lease, 152 with Alice and Ephraim. 170, Jeff and Ciara, and 263 with Jonah, who had multiple offers rejected and eventually ended up breaking the lease because they were trying to get out of there so bad because the area that they were living in currently wasn't the best. And how about questions about new build homes? Well, 185 is Bryant, 226 is Aaron and Devaney, 256 is Jelly. That's her name. I love it. Navigating high interest rates and scoring with a $10,000 incentive for a home new built that appraised $30,000 over. And then episode 260 is Patrick and Alex, who got a crazy low interest rate as well. They ended up going with the builder's lender, and they got a 4.99 30-year fixed. And then we even have stories from people that are medical students or have medical loans or other big student loans. 195 is Jeremiah, who had major student loan fears. 233 is Stephanie, who had $200K in student loans. And then the last ones that are going to be on the list. I just wanted to tease you with them right here, but JT's going to put them all in the notes. There's episode 82 with Kenneth and Danielle, who were VA buyers in a high cost of living area. Episode 129 is Quasi, who was bought a home while he was still in college. Quasi got approved for a home loan while still in college. It can happen. Listen to the story to find out. Episode 173 is Antoine and Shaylee, and their moving story is bonkers. The day of their move, you got to listen to that. 182 is Weston. He had zero credit, not bad credit, zero credit, and was a homeowner in just a matter of months. Episode 189 is Stephanie and her husband using their VA loan. Episode 330 is a renter to a homeowner, but they also wanted, it was Christina, and she wanted to use the home as her business. So that's an interesting story. If that happens to be something you're thinking about trying to do, you can hear directly from a person who did it. Episode 335 is a mix of a bunch of things. It's a military spouse, self-employed and trying to figure out what to do with her income, and then using a VA loan. And then episode 338 is Alexander and David, and that one has crazy tips on what to do when you're in a bad deal. We're talking mold, horrible, gross things that make you need to pull out of the deal, and how to know when you're working with a not-so-hot realtor who's not helping you with that. And then my favorite, most random one of all is episode 343, Jessica from Portland, who her and her boyfriend lived in a van for 7 years. Not the person you think is going to, immediately go out and buy a home. And they were... when they were getting ready to buy a home, Jessica's boyfriend and her got robbed and beat up, but they still, after that event, went and bought a home. So there it is. That's your list. Go ahead and make your own playlist out of it. Use the real homies who have done this and have been through it. Let their stories inspire you to cross whatever your Delaware River is. Because this first-time homebuyer revolution is in full swing. Welcome to the new world. You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuy.com to get started.